Hello. I don't know why Rachel isn't there, but she's gonna be. Oh, there she is. Hello, everybody. What's going on? Welcome to this show, a talk show called Better Together with Gabby and Rachel. We do this show every other Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about mental health, self development, and happier living and healthier living. So, if that's something that you're interested in and you're new to the stream, make sure you guys follow me. I would appreciate that. Our goal is to provide you guys with education and real life experiences that you can apply to your mental health journey. So, thank you for being here. Rachel, everyone probably knows you by now, but just in case they don't, give us a little introduction.
Yes, hello for my second show on Twitch this time around. And I'm Rachel. I'm a nationally, I need to say it differently now. I'm a licensed eligible mental health counselor working in a college counseling setting. And I've known Gabby for like ever now. Give me just a hot second. I'm going to go hop off camera to take my contacts out really quick. I'm
Sure.
so sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You do what you got to do. Um, so guys,
Hello there.
today, hello there. What's going on? Welcome, welcome Cody. Welcome Sean. Welcome to the stream. So today, guys, we're going to be talking about mental health therapy and what it's like to go to therapy, what it's like to provide therapy, and the ins and outs of maybe different kinds of therapies there are out there. And yeah, so some people maybe have been to therapy before. If you've been to therapy before, hit a one in my chat. If you've never been to therapy before, hit a two. Let's see if you guys can follow simple instructions. One, if you've been to therapy. Two, if you've never been to therapy. Armadillo, what up? Armadillo's been to therapy, so is Sean. Cool beans, cool beans. We'd love to hear it. So, guys, we're going to start off the show with Rachel giving us a quote of the week and perhaps a tip, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. So this quote is so fitting because it comes from Martin Luther King Jr. and it is, "You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step." We're going to be talking about therapy today, and particularly when talking about therapy, it doesn't all come at once. If you're having symptoms of maybe what seems simple, like anxiety or a breakup, or maybe even just family trouble, the first step in getting up that whole staircase of feeling better, getting over that obstacle, is getting to therapy. That first session, finding a therapist, for example, can oftentimes be the first place to start when you're feeling a little down and need a little bit of help. And then, as you know, I have another quote that I can throw onto that if you focus on the moments, the years follow along, that it just takes time. But if you keep taking each step, you're going to make it up that staircase eventually.
Heck yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good one. Because, I know personally me, when I think of like different things that I like, different dreams that I have that I want to achieve in life, sometimes I overthink it because I see the big picture, which is like obviously the goal, but taking it one step at a time is a lot more helpful than trying to do it all at once. So cool.
For sure.
Good quote, good quote. Okay, guys, like I said, this is Better Together with Gabby and Rachel. If you're new here, this is a mental health talk show where we talk about mental health, obviously, and we also talk about self development, happier living, and healthier living. So if you're interested in that kind of content and you are looking for a tool to use in your mental health journey, make sure you follow the channel, Gabby Uke. That's me. So, guys, let's get into it. So, if you had to define therapy, or I could even give my own layman's term definition of what I think maybe might be the definition, how would we define therapy, mental health therapy in particular? So, if I were to give a definition, I would say that it is let's see, is an intervention used for individuals with a variety of different mental health issues slash maybe different populations, and it provides tools to use to enhance their mental health.
I like that definition.
Cool. So how would you define therapy?
I mean, pretty much what you said. I actually just like peeked too at the definition. I know therapy in general is like to heal or find relief from a disorder or illness, and I think like in general that's great. But like when you're talking about mental health therapy, I think it's great to talk about it like overall. But the part of the issue when you talk about it like from that like huge viewpoint, even look at like the big picture, the big staircase is like it's different for everyone. Like what are your goals and what is the reason, because nowadays you don't have to have like an actual disorder or an illness necessarily to be going to therapy for mental health.
Right. It's a way to just
So
better yourself in general, which there's always room for improvement with everything. So why not
for sure.
why not take that step to improve yourself? You'd be surprised. I mean, I'm surprised. Like, I go to therapy. I'm taking a break from therapy, but I'm going to therapy, and I'm always surprised at some of the things that I accomplish, after going to therapy. But for those of us who don't know, because I'm sure I know the basics of it, but what kinds of therapy are there in the mental health world?
Well, if you're talking specifically mental health therapy, that's pretty much in and of itself its own thing. So that's what I do. So that's what you're probably thinking of, like two people in a chair, like the person lounging on the couch, talking one on one. That's a form of mental health therapy, like so individual therapy. Um, I mean, therapy is a very broad term, and like even looking at like mental health therapy, that's a broad term because I can also be considered like a counselor. Or I mean, you could go even far as to say like call some people with my degree like a mentor or something like that. So like I kind of lost my train of thought
That's
there.
okay.
To be honest.
I'll interject here. I'm gonna kind of explain my mental health journey to you guys, but I'm going to fast forward to the point where I really made that decision to like take accountability for my mental health. In 2018, I had a plan to unalive myself. And I had some concerned friends who I lived with, and they were like, "We're going to get you into a mental health facility, or we're calling the cops," pretty much. And I was like, that's fair. I'm afraid of myself right now because I have a legitimate plan, and that's scary. Have you ever been afraid of yourself? That's intense. Being afraid of your own self. Like I've felt that one time in my life, and it was intense. But when I was there, they had different kinds of mental health therapy. They had like the regular like one-on-one sessions, but most of the time it was group therapy that you were with up to like between like 5 and like 20 people. But on top of that therapy that people is saying like, oh, like I know this is what mental health therapy is, they also had other kinds of therapy. They had music therapy, which was really cool, and I actually had the opportunity to play my ukulele while I was there. Well, actually it wasn't my ukulele, it was their ukulele, but they heard that I played, so they gave me the opportunity to do that, which was really fun. And they had art therapy, which was really cool. Most of that experience, I don't remember all the details of much. I just know that I was in a traumatic state, so I tend to forget things like whenever I'm like dealing with traumas, and I think a lot of people do that, not just me, but yeah, and I think they may have had another kind of therapy while I was there, but I can't remember what we did. I think it was recreational therapy or occupation. No, it wasn't occupational therapy. It was recreational therapy. Occupational therapy is my realm.
Yeah. And that's like what's wild about therapy is there's so many certifications for it all, and there's so many like aspects of different therapy that go into it. Like as a counselor, I use aspects of art therapy or even music therapy at times just to like utilize certain like aspects of being human, I guess. And that's where I was like, oh, technically there's like different types. But you were saying like with specifically like what I practice is counseling and working with like mental emotional health. And there's like actually theories on how to counsel someone because counseling is not advice giving, it's not coaching someone, it's not just like being a friend. It's just like a very kind of almost unique relationship, which is like it sounds like what you were going through too. oftentimes like social workers do that, and usually they're called counselors or social workers, which I think is ultimately what would differentiate between like music therapy specific or like recreational therapy, because those are totally different theories and like frameworks of thought. So like going from that aspect, usually group and individual therapy are like the primary two. A lot of times people go to like family therapy. So like that could be like just two or more individuals in a family unit, and then there's couples therapy, which is frequent, and that can be like just like two friends that are going, or it can be like actual like a married couple, or like a dating couple or something like that. There's also sex therapy specifically, and that is there's various, like if you're like polyamorous, for example, there can be numerous people attending. Some people do it individually, which is funny enough. Sex therapy is usually not related to sexual issues. So there's my finishing answer before I got sidetracked. So
That's
you had a good experience being inpatient with your therapy. How long were you inpatient, Gabby, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no problem. So I was there for 10 days. I was a pretty long. It was
Um,
pretty long. I was there for 10 days and I had a pretty decent experience. One of the reasons why I actually started the show was because of the experience I had there. I those of you who know me, I'm for now a licensed physical therapy assistant, and I realized after going to school that my passions lie in mental health. And I mean, I still have some passion for physical therapy too, but I have a lot of passion for mental health. And when I was in that one of the group therapy sessions at that hospital, I had a experience where we all were telling some kind of a story. I can't remember the topic really. It might have had something to do with like just like things that you're proud of that you've done in your life, something like that. And my story, which I won't really go into much detail unless you know me, you know it, made this one girl cry. And I felt like so bad, like that my story made her cry. But she also was like, she was the last one to go. So by the time it got to her, she was just like a wreck because everybody's story was making her cry. And so I kind of stayed after, and like was around her and was like, I don't remember what I said to her, but I was just there and talking to her. And the therapist of the group therapies came to me and said, I think you have a gift in this field. I think that you should maybe pursue it. And I was like, wow, that's really, really cool of you to say. That's like the coolest compliment ever. And so, going to school just sounds like a lot. Um, I've tried, and I don't think that I'll be returning. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. Things change. Who knows what's gonna happen in 2023? Maybe I'll go back. Well, you never know. But doing this show is a really cool way that I'm able to promote the mental health community and mental health in general to people. So this kind of all spiraled off from that whole conversation in 2018. So that's how the show started.
love it. I'm here for it. I'm here.
You
Thank
are
you for
here.
having me
Thank you for being
on
here.
your
I
busy.
appreciate it. It is awesome. So I did get off track a little bit, but I will. This is probably an obvious question, but Rachel, have you ever been to therapy before?
So I have a really funny like story of how I became a counselor, and it starts pretty young. The long story short of it was I had ADHD my whole life and didn't know. And as a female, I was intelligent enough that it kind of like went unnoticed. So I was misdiagnosed with intermittent explosive disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, all the like labels at me all over from maybe like fifth grade. And I like had like exceptional grades in classes, but like a little bit of behavioral issues, kind of like talked out of turn. Was a little obnoxious, used to get frustrated with stuff easily, and I don't know, it just like started really young. And so I went to like the school counselor periodically, even though I was like in the gifted program at the same time that all this is going on. Um, and then I got into sports and things kind of settled down. And then I had a really, really bad situation with a coach. and had a couple brain injuries that were really
Mm.
bad. And so I started seeing like a family therapist with my mom, who I freaking hated, couldn't like absolutely despise her to this day, like so unethical. As a counselor now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we actually did that. And then what that was like late high school, and I started having some pretty significant issues when I took a break from track and field, and ended up also inpatient after a second suicide attempt in a very short period of time.
Mm.
So yeah, folks, ADHD is not just emotion, not just attention. It's like really, really, really severe. Oftentimes in women, it turns into bipolar, depression, anxiety, like really severe stuff. So that's where I was misdiagnosed with bipolar. But then after 7 years of therapy, with like three therapists overall. So I had a therapist in college who was terrible, essentially like kicked me out of school. And then I had another therapist for 3 years, slightly overlapping that therapist in college. And then I had another one for 5 years after that. And so after working with my last therapist for the first 3 years, she had hints, but she practiced from like a client-centered approach, which I'm here for now as therapist, and didn't tell me anything. And I started to, in my program of study, in studying the diagnostic and statistical manual and tracking my own moods, because I was off during COVID at that time, so I was like home a lot. My and like cutting all of my medication and being um, very like lifestyle oriented. Like what are my habits? What is my body kind of telling me? Which is not for everyone. Like I'm not saying do this, but through that whole process and my therapist, that's when I found like the appropriate diagnosis. And diagnosis is solely for treatment, and I like got awesome treatment. It was great. So um and that's all pretty much. Like I definitely had to work at it, and I had a couple psychologists and some evals and a psychiatrist help too, but it was my really good therapist that helped me get to that point and let me get to it too. So it wasn't like I was like looking for an answer. It was just like, oh, wait a minute, this might work. Um, so yeah, that's the long story short of it. And I feel like if I'd had, honest to goodness, if I'd seen better clinicians earlier on, I don't think it would have gone so unnoticed, and so many issues would have like blown up. So I'm such an advocate for therapy,
Absolutely.
inpatient, outpatient, intensive outpatient, all kinds of stuff.
Well, thank you for getting vulnerable and sharing that with us. I'm going to share a little bit more about my mental health journey as well, but just so you guys know, if you're just tuning in, this is Better Together with Gabby and Rachel. I see Charlie just joined the chat and Chris from Florida is here, so welcome everybody. I appreciate you for being here. This is a talk show about mental health, self-development, and happier and healthier living. So if this is something you're interested in, we would be so happy if you would follow the channel. This is also a good like hopefully a tool that you can use in your journey of mental health. So yeah, today we're talking about going to therapy, mental health therapy in particular, and Rachel just shared her story about how wow, ADHD can really go undiagnosed for such a long time and really can cause some issues. I actually just got diagnosed with ADHD last year around this time, and I got put on a medication, and it actually like increased like my happiness being on that medication, which was crazy because that's not what it's meant for. It's not meant to help you with your depression, but it does help.
Yeah, I have no, like I rank at a zero on the like depression inventory, like Bex, and same with anxiety. Like I don't have anxiety to ADHD. It's crazy. It's so different. But then once you like treat the primary cause, it's just mental. And that's why therapy is important, folks. You can't walk into a psychiatrist and talk with them for 15 minutes and they know the issue and get you the right medication if you need medication.
Absolutely, it takes a lot of time to establish that relationship with that therapist. So
For sure.
I'm really interested to hear that you've not only had good experiences but bad experiences with therapy. So I'm glad that those experiences have actually not turned you away from the field. Instead, it's actually maybe allowed you to search for more options instead of giving up, which a lot of people
Yeah,
have a
I
bad
wasn't.
therapist and give up. So I'm glad to hear that it's possible to find a good therapist.
I think always, if you have a bad therapist, and it doesn't, so I did have a therapist who was very unethical. I also had a therapist who just wasn't a good fit for me. And those are two very different things. And like if you are struggling with your therapist, it's not like I tell my clients all the time, like it's nothing personal. We're still human.
Yeah,
Like we are our tools. So if you don't like if we don't mesh, like our styles don't match, that's totally okay. Like if you don't like your therapist, leave. That's totally fine. You can terminate whenever you want. And it's tough and it like feels like you're starting over because like every time you meet a new therapist you have to do like the intake essentially and like give them your whole life story. Why did you come to therapy? What do you want to do essentially? And it's like, oh my gosh, like I just did all that. And so that can get frustrating, but it's definitely worth it when you can find somebody who's a good fit for you. And that might be like different types of therapy, like styles, or that just might be different people, might even be a different gender. Like you know, you never know what's going to work for you. um, so yeah, it's
absolutely.
just weird. Good and bad therapists out there, and therapists for you and they're not for you. Have you ever had experiences, Gabby, that were not so good?
Yes, I have. My initial therapy experience started shortly after my mom passed away in 2003. I was in the third grade, and I would see a school-based counselor. Couldn't tell you their name. I don't remember who they are at this point in my life. But I remember I remember like my high school counselor, and I remember that I did not like her. And we had the same high school counselor, so you would know. There was one that worked when we started going to junior high school, and then she retired or went to a new job, and then we got in the new therapist, and they were just so unethical too, in my opinion. But I'll get to that. Let me get to that. So my first experience, I had a lot of anger issues because I was abused at home, and my mom died, and I like was like 9 years old, so I didn't know how to like express my anger and my just all my emotions. I had so many emotions. And so, I got bullied a little bit in school because I just moved to a new school. My mom just died, and like I was abused. So like, and I like didn't know how to deal with all that. So of course I acted out a little bit in school. But I remember that these two girls were bullying me, and I got real pissed, and I shoved a chair into them because we were like sitting on the floor for some reason. We were getting a book read to us or something, and I like pushed a chair to her, and so the therapist gave me a bear to punch. And that must be a very old tactic. They probably don't do that anymore. I hope to God they don't do that anymore. Please tell me they don't, because I was absolutely like, are you fucking serious? That's what you want me to do? You want me to punch a bear? How's that going to fix my problems? But I mean, do they do that? Do they still do that? And what's your
I'm
opinion on
sure
it?
it's floating around. I mean, I would never, as a therapist myself, I don't find that like ethical in the sense that it's really not meeting the needs of the student
Yeah,
because you needed more than just a bear to punch. You needed to talk about why you were so pissed off.
exactly.
But like
Exactly.
usually like students are like more play therapy oriented. So like I don't understand why like a school counselor was directing you to do something like that.
Yeah,
Like
dude.
unless she like specifically like handed you the bear and was like, if you get mad at someone, do this instead. Even that's like, no, not for a
Yeah,
child.
I remember
Not
even
for a child who's traumatized.
at that time, I think I was in the fourth grade. I was 10 when that incident happened with that therapist. But I even remember being 10 years old, and I was holding this bear, and I was like, that's what? This doesn't seem right. Because I didn't really want to like hurt anybody. It's just that they were like picking on me and hurting me. And I was in the 10th grade, or I was 10 years old. Like, you know what I mean? What
Well, like knowing the school district that we were in, which for viewers was redneck. I think that's a good term to put
redneck
it.
is a
Like
great
Pennsylvania
term.
redneck. Like, um, they like didn't give two shits about the actual problem. It was like all band-aids. And so like I'm not surprised that like she probably knew exactly what was going on, like with the bullying situation, but it was probably some little that like what was she gonna do
Well,
about it?
well,
Probably
those
nothing.
those two girls were very popular. I won't give
Hmm,
away too much
shocker.
information to give away their identity, because if you were watching and you went to high school with me, I would give away their identity very fast with a couple of
You could give me initials and I'd be like, oh, mm,
Um, shipped off to a fancy school for singing.
oh, beautiful.
Yeah, bullied in the fourth grade. Thanks a lot.
Did the other one have a first name that started with the same letter?
No,
Okay.
not no. Well,
Just
she
curious. Just mean girls. Just
just mean girls.
we had a lot of those. So yeah, so that therapist, oh my god, 100% yes. Because especially with like the connections with like the teachers there, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so that's not a tactic. Like if you had gone there and she knew the situation and authentically was trying to help you, no, she would have not given you a fucking bear to punch. She would have like had that situation like kicked in the ass. Like it doesn't matter what's going on at home. If you're being bullied at school on top of that, it's still going to exacerbate things.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. A big, like, honest to God, 90%, and that's not an exaggeration, 90% of my job is just listening.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to listen to little 10-year-old Gabby.
Do you
Yeah.
find that your ADHD makes it challenging for you to listen and actually absorb some information that people give you?
So, funny enough, it almost gives me a little bit of I call it my superpower at times. Because I love people, I genuinely do. I also, like, hate them, but, it's almost like a hyperfixation for me to get all the information I can about the people in front of me. So it's like I've almost like I joke that it's like honing the superpower, but really it's just playing into my skills and like knowing my weaknesses. So I have a ring that I wear for when I'm like trying to focus, and I also wear like thicker nails to like play with them a little bit. So it's not doing anything that'll distract the client, but it helps me reminds me to stay grounded and focus on them. I'm also medicated, which helps with that. But I genuinely was concerned about all of that. Like when I went into therapy, like being a therapist in my internship, like over 2 years ago now. Um, I was terrified because my memory sucks so bad. It's just like things slip away. I forget things. I get lost. I get confused. I don't pay attention very well to like various like things. But then there's some things that I kind of do, and I can't really tell you the reasoning. Like it's not important to me, and it's not important to other people on the level that I forget shit. So it's like, oh my god, I'm never gonna know who these clients are. I'm gonna have like 6 clients with the same name, and I'm never gonna keep any of them straight. But it was as soon as I started doing it, it was like, I don't know. It's been a shit show getting here, and it kind of like aligned a little bit with the memory thing
Yeah.
and the focus thing. And it's like a lot of I use my own tools from my own therapy and stuff too.
So do you
But yeah, that's a
find
good question.
do you find that using things, so I know we're kind of veering off the subject of therapy, but you mentioned that you like have your nails thicker so you can kind of like mess with them a little bit. Do you find that like fidget spinners and things like that are beneficial to like concentration?
Oh yeah, so for me personally, they're too distracting in session. Yeah, so it depends, and it's based on stimulation. I think be very cautious, all our viewers, y'all, because TikTok is not a way forms of information. Like autism and ADHD is not nearly as prevalent as a stupid freaking app says. Like it's all like we have people self-diagnosing with all kinds of crap all the time. But stimulation, which you might have heard, like overstimulated, understimulated, I'm stimming. That's like a natural thing. Like people want to find stimulated. You need that healthy balance. And so don't quote me on any of this research. I'm not like up to par with a lot of it, but there's a lot of information about the like when we find that balance of like physical and mental stimulation, that's like the sweet spot. It's kind of worse for people with mental or illness or disorders, but everybody needs to be stimulated, like everyone has probably felt being bored or feeling overwhelmed in a crowd where it's really loud and there's a lot of people talking and there's just so much going on you like can't tell left from right. So like fidgets, like I remember reading something about like your right brain, your left brain, when you are playing with your hands and using both of your hands at the same time, it kind of activates both,
Hmm.
and it can help with like emotional regulation and even like thinking capacity, essentially,
Hmm.
in layman's terms.
because I'm doing that right
So I'm
now.
here for them.
I literally am
Yeah,
always
and
I'm
I
always
get
going like this with my fingers and like fucking with my fingernails and shit.
heck yeah. And that's why I wear thick nails because I can't pick, which is like my natural thing to do it. And it's, I have clients come in all the time who have natural stimming that isn't harmful to them. Like some of them will twirl their hair. They're like, oh, I want to twirl my hair less. Sometimes they'll like, feel something soft, or maybe you have a smell that you really like. That's just like activating your senses in a way that you find comfort when you're feeling stressed out. That's all stimming is. It's not, I mean, you can think of like the extreme sense, like hand flapping, or like holding. Like sometimes people like certain things they carry around because they feel good in
Hmm.
their hands. That's like really extreme versions of like extreme stimulation. But yeah, we all like a little good stim.
Very cool. Very cool. I know we got off a topic a little bit, but if you guys are just tuning in, this is Better Together with Gabby and Rachel. This is a talk show about mental health, self development, and happier and healthier living. So thank you for being here and for viewing so far. We have about 25 minutes left in the show. So thank you for being here, everybody. So my next question for you, Rachel, is you kind of mentioned it, but like what really drove you to become a therapist? Like what was that moment that like made you realize like this was your path?
I can tell you the exact moment. Actually, I was driving, listening to a song by Beethoven that helped me through one of my like very dark like times. And I was a pre med student, really close to. I think I was either studying, like I just bought the book for the MCAT. Basically, I was getting close, like finishing up classes there, and I was a double major as a pianist, music major, whatever. But I was really struggling, man. Taking a semester off school, got hit by a truck, like all kinds of crap going on. And I had found out the ins and outs of medical school and what it actually took, and then like being matched, and like if you don't get matched, like having to go, like it's a lot more than people realize. It's not as simple as going to med school and graduating and then residency. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So I was like, shit, I don't want to do this. I was so scared. I had invested all this time, all this money. I don't know what the next step was. And I'm like, I was trying to think of things through. Like what's a constant? What's something I don't even know. It was like a long thought process of like consistency. And the thing that I found in this drive as I'm listening to Beethoven, thinking about all these weird life things of like a 23-year-old. I wasn't that old. Um, I was like, well, my therapist has been there. She's been pretty cool. I was like, oh shit, I think that's the answer. I don't know. It was like a weird, and then it like kind of like from there the pieces fell into place that I was like the pretty chill one. Never really dated in high school, but was the one who gave dating advice. Um, like I have opinions, but I don't know. There's some, like I love people. I love people. I love to see people succeed. Oh, I love it. Love to see people grow. Um, Make me cry. But so that was like the moment though. Like I had so much happen and so much push me, and I'd had good therapists and bad therapists. And it's like, wow, this good therapist really is really what helped me get to this point, and here we are. And it took some time from there too. I mean, I had to figure out the ins and outs. I was an undergraduate at that time finishing up, and so I needed a couple extra courses to kind of transition over into that, which actually ended up being a lot easier to do, obviously, than being like a pre med double major. It's going to be easier.
Right.
Um, so I like meshed those two majors together essentially to graduate early because I knew like what grad program I wanted, and it does take a long time for mental health counseling. So it took me 3 years of my program. So 3 years of book, like 2 years of book work, a year of internship, and then once I graduate, I have to have 2 to 6 years of supervised work experience, and then I can be licensed to practice. Like they don't fuck around. You are prepped and ready. So if you are looking for mental health counseling, find someone who's licensed. Do not mess around with Christian counseling. Do not mess around with like new agey therapists. Honest to goodness, I mean the training that you have to get and the time and the experience you have to get like your license LPC or LPCC, LCPC, or even your LCSW, LSW. So like social worker counseling license. Um, it's substantial. Like, I mean, there's bad ones out there still, and there's ones that are not going to fit for you. But at least start with somebody who has the credentials, please. And I don't mean so with the Christian counseling thing too, like regardless of your beliefs, Christian counselors usually aren't credentialed. You can go to a counselor who's Christian if that's what you want, but Christian counseling is not, you can't get a license in Christian counseling. So, fun
That
fact, yeah.
interesting. So when you say Christian counseling, do you mean is it like therapy that's like provided through the church?
It really, it like kind of, it depends. Yeah. So that's oftentimes like what they like tout themselves as is it's like faith based counseling. And so usually, and I can't say always, but still, if it's a Christian counselor and they're licensed, great, excellent. You know, faith based counselor and they're licensed, excellent. They've gone through all the training that any other counselor is, and they like their faith is obviously very important to them, and they want to share that, and that's fantastic. But if they're like a Christian counselor or faith based counselor through a church, and they have no credentials, no licensing, the chances are that that's just somebody who identifies as Christian, who's a strong believer in faith, and wants to guide someone in that faithful journey rather than offering like mental or emotional counseling services.
So
They're very different.
so a Christian counselor doesn't actually need any credentials at all to be a Christian counselor to get the title.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. There's no licensing board for Christian counseling.
So there's no like insurance billing because you can't bill insurance. It's like a
It would be
you
like
know,
chaotic. Yeah.
I don't talk about religion on my stream, and I'm gonna probably not go any further. But like, we could have a conversation off of stream
Oh yeah, I
about
mean,
my
anytime.
opinion.
And I am here for obviously I value like all practitioners of all religions. But you can it's so stressful because like in the counseling theories and these like frameworks that we work from when working with clients, like your faith can't be at play. Like you cannot be biased in that way. And I'm like, out. So just be
Right.
wary. Just credentials. Go to a therapist who's credentialed, license eligible, licensed, nationally certified. There's all kinds of credentials, but just take a peek at who you're going to because it's a little wild out there, folks.
Yeah, I'd say.
I could talk forever about the religious stuff too.
Yeah, we won't get into too much detail because that's just not what I talk about on my stream. But it is very interesting. I had no idea that was even a thing.
I know. I didn't honestly. I didn't know about like any of this. Even going to therapy for so long, never knew any of this
That's
like
crazy.
occurred. And like for example, there's kind of like beef between social workers and counselors. Funny enough,
Oh, really?
it's like a weird. I don't know. It's like a weird thing
That's weird.
between the.
You know, there's
Yeah.
beef between physical therapists and chiropractors.
Yeah. I see that. Like I've heard of. It's so strange. Like and they basically all do the same thing. Like it's so funny to me.
Yeah, I'm like, why not work together? that's that's the solution. Work together. You're
Yeah, because
both
like I've seen
beneficial.
both. Heck yeah. And social workers have a different perspective than counselors. Like that's pretty much the extent of it.
Interesting. Chiros are the Christian therapist version of physical therapists.
I love that. I feel like that's so valid. Oh my gosh, yes.
I've
I'm
worked
here for
I've worked in both fields, so I think both fields are really cool regardless.
yes, honestly, and I'm not like downing like Christian counseling either. Like there's fantastic Christian counseling available.
If you work
But
together,
yeah,
it would
oh
be
god.
better together. It would be better together, wouldn't it? Speaking of, guys, if you're just tuning in, this is Better Together with Gabby and Rachel, a talk show about mental health, self development, and happier and healthier living. So, thank you for watching. We are talking about what it's like to go to therapy today. And while we're on the topic of the show, what are we doing the next week? The next week. I'm going to be in Florida for that show.
Healthy communication.
Healthy communication. That's our show. Every other Tuesday is our show. So next week there will be no show, but then the week after I'm going to be in Florida on vacation, living it up. But I'm also going to do my show still because, I want to. I'm going to be bringing my laptop and all my stuff with me. So it'll be cool. It'll be cool. Anyway, let's see what is next on the agenda. Um what sets you apart from other therapists, Rachel? What makes you unique?
Whoa, oh shit. Um, well, first of all, every therapist is going to be a little bit different. Um, this wouldn't make me unique, but I'm is considered an eclectic therapist. So I kind of dabble in different types of treatment for people. I don't stick strictly to like maybe like you've heard of like cognitive behavioral therapy, or like stick like specifically what is it? I can't even think of terms like EMDR, like DBT, all kinds of different frameworks, and there's like tons of trainings you can do for these specific things. But I use all kinds of different like theoretical perspectives based on the client. Oh, there's a bunch of eclectic therapists. That's not unique. Um, I think I think I think I'm a good listener, and
Is it?
that
Do you
sounds
feel like
super
you're in a
basic.
job interview right now?
Yeah, I do. Honest to gosh, I'm like I don't know. Like there's nothing specific about me because I'm not always good at my job in the sense that I'm not always like a good fit. I've had a couple clients like not come back. I've had a couple, here or there ask to switch to another therapist. And I think what might set me apart from others is that it doesn't bother me because I too have had an experience where it wasn't the therapist's fault. We just weren't meshing.
Yeah.
And so I am always very upfront in like when you go to a therapist, for example, give a little like snapshot of what it would look like. Usually when you start with a new clinician, you do like what we call at my center an intake session, which is a pretty standard term for like that first information gathering session where it's not really like any counseling skills, any like theoretical frameworks used to talk to the client or like to help them problem solve or things like that. It's just them talking, telling you who they are. What is their history? What was their childhood like? What is their family history of mental illness? What brought them to therapy? Have they seen a therapist before? Have they had like psychiatric medications before? What do they want to get out of coming to therapy? Are they court ordered here or are they here of their own free will? Are they seeing another therapist? Are they in any therapy groups? Are they interested in any group therapy? It's just a huge, basically, like you said, like an interview.
Yeah.
Yes, I still feel like I'm being interviewed, but that's pretty much what that first session is when you go because you can't just start from ground zero. You have to kind of build that what we call rapport, build that relationship with the client. And so I think what sets me apart is I'm pretty content with who I am. I've worked really hard myself in therapy to get to a point where if a client hates me, that's okay. It's not, maybe it is a personal dig at me, maybe it's not. So I feel like I do pretty all right work with them because my self worth isn't attached to it. Which I don't think that's always a common thing, but I've seen that in therapy where it's more of a need to be liked or feel that like listen. It feels so good to get validation that your client's doing well and you may have like assisted in that, but it feels just as good to never get that validation and still be confident like internally that okay, I did this. Um and because of that, I'm able to really because I'm not looking for validation from the client at any point, and I'm very like cautious of like feeling like this term called countertransference, for example, where you feel like feelings towards the client and not in the therapeutic relationship. Like, oh, they like, you know, you're angry at someone in their life for some reason. It's like transferring your emotions like onto them,
Yeah.
essentially,
God.
when you have no part in this person's life. Yeah, it's a like some people really struggle with it. I've had a couple moments, and you have to check and balance yourself.
Absolutely.
But because I'm not looking for validation, I think I can listen a lot better to my clients.
That's good.
I'm not, yeah, that was a really long way of saying, yeah, I'm not listening for my own needs. Like it's almost freeing to just be there for someone wholeheartedly. And like, I could like really fuck up. Like I could really fuck with someone. And this isn't ever sound like really, it would be so unethical, obviously. And I'm under oath and I'm a very ethical practitioner, but no one's going to know. I could like be there and always be seeking validation in those sessions, and no one's going to know except the client, and how the client is feeling is going to be impacted. But It's a weird relationship,
That
man.
is
Like
weird.
sometimes I think about it and get meta.
Yeah, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say any names. Actually, I'm not gonna even say it at all because that never mind. It's gonna just open up a can of worms, and I'm not gonna do it. But basically, not for you.
I
For
need these
I
after.
can give you
Well,
details,
okay, never
but
mind.
I'm not gonna. I just realized that that's gonna probably cause some problems for them if I say it. Even though I'm not saying their name, I just guarantee that it's gonna cause some problems. Um, but um, I think that would be something if I were a therapist, I think I would have a hard time not being like building relationships that are like not super personable, like too personable. You know what I mean? Because I feel like you want to be like friends with them, with that person. You know what I mean? Like you do, and that's how I felt with. So after I left the hospital, that I was there for that 10 days, I went to a facility where I had a therapist. It was my first real personal therapist. And I loved her so much. She was amazing. And I had her for 2 years. And then she ended up uh, getting an opportunity to work with the community more in a different position. So she took that position and she told me that she couldn't tell me like anything. She couldn't tell me where she was going because it was unethical. She can't just steal clients from, it's probably some kind of, you know what I mean? They got some kind of contract
Like a
of some
non-disclosure,
sort.
yeah, or
Yeah.
whatever it's called. Yeah, do not compete. Something, yeah.
Yeah, something silly like that. But she told me, yeah, because I was like, well, can I add you on Facebook? And she was like, well, after so much time passes, um, yeah. But she didn't tell me how much time. And I was just like, man, I still know your name. Like, I occasionally I'm just like, I just want to add you.
You can. I mean, she just might not add you back, which can feel like a rejection to clients, which is,
Yeah,
yeah, it's such a weird relationship. And being on both ends of it, it's such a good relationship. Like, some of my clients know a lot about me as a counselor. Like, I'm not saying I'm not personable when I'm like, oh, I'm not looking for validation. It's just, I, it's just different. Like what I say in that session impacts me no more or no less than what they say in session impacts them or how they let it impact them. So it's like this weird feeling of freedom. I don't know. I pretty much just listen. That's like all I do.
that's very cool. So, I know
Yeah.
I'm asking you a lot of questions, but we do have about
I'm
nine
talking
minutes.
a lot.
We have like about 9 minutes left. What is one example of a way that you've impacted somebody in like that you like did get that validation? Because getting the validation's not a bad thing.
I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. Oh no, you're frozen. Can you see me?
I'm frozen. Oh, I see you still. Hang on, let me go into
Okay, you're back.
I'm back. Okay, cool. Okay.
I got too excited, stressed out the energy.
It's
No,
okay.
I'm so excited, Sean. That's why I cry. If I cry, it's like positive tears because I think there's those stories like a lot of my supervisors in counseling have had, I mean, they're 20 years my elder. Like they've had all this experience. They've had hundreds, if not thousands, of clients, worked in all kinds of different settings, all kinds of different places. But there's still those stories, especially like when you're first starting out, they're really like, okay, yeah, I'm doing the right thing to just stick with you. And I have a few of those. I have some really funny ones, and I have some that were like learning experiences, and I've had some mess ups, obviously, like everyone does. But ultimately, what you put into therapy is what you get out of it. Okay, that's the biggest thing to remember. Like when a client thanks me, I have to remind them the year that I saw them, how many thousands of hours did they spend with themselves, and I spent like maybe 12 with them. So it's all them. Like I had minuscule little part. So I had a client who was really was on the autism spectrum and was really struggling with emotional expression, and were they just felt out of place and they really couldn't name their emotions because they were feeling differently than other people, and so it was a big difficulty for them. And this client had worked with some senior staff in the past at my center, and I was an intern at the time. So I'm like, oh gosh, if they've worked with these other people, what am I going to do? And so we worked together for a year, and I work in a higher education setting. so a college. And so I'm only in session like for the semesters. So the academic year I worked with them. So about 9 months. Um, and oh gosh, about 3 months before they were set to graduate, they were an art major, or essentially an art major. They came to me and essentially, because of our work together and our work on their emotional reactions and insight to themselves and their triggers and how to cope with anxieties and feeling a little bit different. Um, oh my gosh, they decided to create their art show in different medias of all different types of emotions. Like
Oh,
this
wow.
person who struggled to feel emotions, who didn't wasn't able to name them, who really didn't think they had it. You know, there's a term for it when you really don't have emotion, like you don't have that natural reaction. They did, they just didn't realize it was different. Would come in and give me these vibrant physical explanations of what they were feeling. And all of a sudden, they created these art pieces that were made out of metal, that were acrylic, that were like statues, that were clay, that were all kinds of different things and had their own exhibit. And every single one, you looked at it and you could feel like exactly what they were feeling because they just didn't have the words for it that whole time, their whole life. They'd had all these things inside, they just didn't have the words for it. And
Oh,
so, like, working with them, they had the words to get it out. And it was like they invited me to the show, and I still have the poster because it was like, wow, I got to see this individual grow in a way that, you know, they probably would have gotten there, right? They would have gotten there at some point, but I got to maybe give them a water bottle on their journey while they walked, and I got to see that little extra step. Oh, I'm gonna tear up because it's just awesome.
dude, I'm about to
So
tear up
that's
too.
the validation. Yeah. So I don't know if they, you know, they would have gotten there without me, but I was honored that they wanted me to be a part of them getting there.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
sounds like you really inspired them.
I'm so sorry.
It's
That's I
okay.
thought in a really long time. Yeah.
That is extremely
So that
cool.
was the big one too. Like when they brought the poster for the art show, I was like, oh shit, I'm where I need to be, man. This is such good stuff.
That is
And it's
so,
just like
so cool.
honoring to see people, you know, get better. Yeah. So yeah.
That's okay. No, it's all right. It just shows how empathetic you are, and that's exactly why you're a good therapist, you know?
So proud
One
of
of the many
them.
reasons.
And I work with college age students, which I think is huge for me because that age is just really neat to see the transitions into like that emerging adulthood.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, college is crazy, y'all.
College is crazy. So, are students ever forced to go to therapy? Or,
Not a good institution, no. But I
okay.
mean, that doesn't mean that a student who, you know, attends our institution doesn't get forced to go to counseling elsewhere because of the law.
Yeah.
Um, And so I think there is maybe some charges that you might be able to get, but they would not be forced, I don't believe, to go to our counseling center. We don't do that at like the on campus center.
Gotcha. You know,
It's different everywhere. Yeah.
I am going to tell you, I think college therapists are super cool in my opinion. Like, I had such a bad experience with therapists in high school and like middle school, all of that school period. I just had a really bad experience with therapists. But when I went to college, I had a counselor who I don't think they necessarily offered like therapy sessions like that, but like he would
Yeah.
sit down and like talk with me a lot about like things that were going on in my life. I mean, that therapist went through a breakup of 6 years with me. He went through me, you know, graduating and then like coming back and then dropping out, and he helped, and since I went back to school last year, I realized I had ADHD, and he was like, oh my gosh, he's like, I have a tool that you can use to help you read better, and he gave me like the thing where you can scan your books and it like reads everything on the computer for you, and it was so helpful. I mean, it took some time, don't get me wrong, to like scan every individual page, but like it was really really cool, and it really helped me retain the knowledge that I was learning. So it's just really cool. Those therapists can really give you a lot of tools that are free to you if you're a student, by the way. If anybody here is a student, you probably have a lot of benefits you don't even know about. Should look into them.
True that. True that. I just keep my student ID in my wallet in case I need to pull it out.
Well, guys, this is
And
better together. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
You good? What's up?
Sorry, Gab. I'm gonna add one more thing. So, like
Yeah.
when you said about tools, so side note too, like when if you ever hear a counselor, like a therapist, talk about tools, sometimes we're not even talking about like physical, tangible things, but like tools that are like cognitive tools. So, if you're sitting there ruminating, like I can give you a quick tool right now. So, if you ever hear yourself use the term everyone, everybody, no one, nobody, everything, nothing, always, never, those like big, what is that, seven? I feel like I'm missing a couple. Those are irrational. It's impossible to know if everyone hates you. It's impossible to know if you can do nothing. You know, it's impossible to wake up one day and do nothing because you're still breathing, you're still existing. So a tool, a cognitive tool would be that when you catch yourself telling like your internal dialogue or like how you think, you catch one of those irrational thoughts, you replace it with something that's more rational. Super simple.
That's something I
Yeah,
need
we're
to
good for
do.
that.
That's a good tool for sure because I do and you know me, we're friends. I do a lot of negative talk and
No.
I talk very negatively about myself too. So it's something I need to really work on. Like I really really need to work on it. Like not even because like I need to just be nicer to myself in general because I deserve it, but also because I feel like I'm a downer in front of all my friends and family if I'm like talking negative all the time. So sometimes I don't know, it just makes me feel like self-conscious.
Stop talking negative right now. You're not a downer.
I know,
You deserve
see?
to take space to be frustrated. But you also deserve to not be frustrated with yourself for doing good work.
True. True. We'll work on it. We'll work on it. I actually have to find a new therapist here like tomorrow. So I'll keep you guys updated when I'm in Florida in 2 weeks, and I'll let you know that I got a therapist, hopefully. And I'm already scheduled for it by the time we have our next episode.
Psychologytoday.com. Truly like the best resource. Psychologytoday.com. You can search by insurance, location, availability, specialization, all kinds of stuff.
Perfect. I'm really glad that you brought that up. Are there any other resources for people that they could use in regard to, like, I guess specifically the suicide hotline number? Do you know that number offhand?
988 is the crisis line. So they actually recently just changed it, and I now can't even remember what it used to be. So if you just dial 988, you're going to get someone who's going to help you out, and they can point you to like local resources. They can help talk you like out of situations. I don't know the like national crisis hotline right off the top of my head, other than, I mean, 988. Just call 988. That's my biggest recommendation. I mean, if you're comfortable with it, call 911. If you really don't feel safe, I always tell, on my campus, that's always the second resource we tell them is to call our campus police. Um, because just having someone there, they're maybe not always the best trained, but they can get you emergency services when you need. It's better to have a crappy person save you and like maybe save you in a really strange way or maybe not do it appropriately than it is to not be saved at all. Um, but Psychology Today is a great online resource to try to find a therapist. If you do have insurance, usually if you look at your insurance card, you can just flip it over. This goes for most state insurances too. I know in my state, our like mental health insurance for like Medicaid and Medicare is fantastic. Um, so if you flip it over, there should be like a customer service or like helpline. A lot of companies offer to like find openings that insurance covers. Um, so you can call offices, like you can call as many places as you need to if you're looking to get a therapist. And I mean, if virtual services are something you're interested in, I know I'm hesitant to say like any specific online services because there's been some pretty substantial data breaches and breaches in confidentiality with some of the big like online benefit or providers. But if that's what you have available in your area, it doesn't hurt to look into that stuff. The biggest thing I recommend is make sure they're credentialed if you're looking for a therapist or someone to help with mental health stuff. But
Perfect.
988, remember that 988. Call that
988.
number if you're really hurting.
Well, thank you for that because I didn't know that changed. That must have been very recent.
Past 6 months, yeah.
Wow. Hello there, Twisted Tea. Welcome to the stream. You're here for the end of it, but if you guys are just tuning in, this is Better Together with Gabby and Rachel. This is officially the end of the show. This is a talk show about mental health, self development, and happier and healthier living every other Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch. Dot Twitch www.twitch.com/GabbyUke. That's where you can find me. And also, if you're new here and you're interested in seeing more of this kind of content, make sure you follow me. I would appreciate it. Rachel can be followed at Rachel Ray, where you can see on her screen. It's actually right there. So I don't know if she'll ever stream, but it's there if you want to follow her. All right, guys. So we will see you in 2 weeks. I'll be in Florida, and we're going to be talking about healthy communication. So I will. Wow, why does my eye look crazy? All right,
Still
guys.
looking good.
Thanks. All right, guys. I'm going to put my BRB screen back on. If anybody wants to play any games or anything, go into one of the gaming channels, and I will talk to you in a minute. Have a good night. Goodbye.
See y'all.